Shocking WWE announcement, Triple H confirms Hulk Hogan's passing at 71. Rest in peace Hulk Hogan. WWE fans are in mourning. Triple H just made a heartbreaking announcement live on Raw. Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has passed away at the age of 71 due to cardiac arrest. In this emotional video, we break down the details surrounding Hogan's tragic death, how WWE superstars and fans are reacting, and the legacy he leaves behind as one of the most iconic figures in wrestling history. The WWE Universe is shattered. The lights dimmed, the cameras rolled, and then Triple H, his voice breaking ever so slightly, stepped into the center of the ring on Monday Night Raw. What he said next brought the world of professional wrestling to a standstill. "Tonight, with a heavy heart, I must confirm that Hulk Hogan has passed away." In that instant, time froze. There was no pyro. No dramatic entrance music. Just silence. Deafening, surreal silence. A legend, no, the legend, was gone. At 71 years old, Terry Bollea, known to the world as Hulk Hogan, died from cardiac arrest in the early hours of the morning. The man who once told us to train, say our prayers, and eat our vitamins, was no longer among us. It was a moment fans weren't ready for. A truth too heavy to accept. Across arenas, locker rooms, Twitter timelines, and living rooms, the news swept like wildfire. Wrestlers who once shared the ring with Hogan, and those who grew up idolizing him, took to social media, some in disbelief, others in tears. Superstars, legends, fans, everyone had something to say, and no one could say enough. But before we mourn, before we dive into the reactions, before we say goodbye, we must remember. Because Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was the moment. He was a movement. He was the man who took wrestling from smoky bingo halls and made it larger than life. To truly understand the gravity of this loss, we have to start where the legend began. Long before the red and yellow, long before WrestleMania, and long before the world knew his name. Terry Eugene Bollea was born on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia, but his heart and soul were forged in Tampa, Florida. Raised in a modest household, Terry was far from the megastar he'd later become. As a child, he wasn't thinking about fame. He was playing baseball, listening to music, and falling in love with the bass guitar. Before he ever dropped a leg, he was plucking strings in rock bands. The spotlight was always calling, just not in the way anyone expected. It wasn't until his early 20s that fate intervened. A chance encounter with wrestling legends Jack and Gerald Briscoe, who spotted the towering, muscular young man training at a local gym, set everything in motion. They introduced him to Hiro Matsuda, a notoriously brutal trainer who famously broke Hogan's leg during their first session, just to see if the kid would come back. And he did. That was the beginning of Hulk Hogan. By the late 70s, Terry Bollea was making waves in wrestling territories across the U.S., wrestling under names like Sterling Golden and the Super Destroyer. But it was in the early 80s, under the guidance of Vince McMahon Jr., that Hulkamania was born. And when it was born, it exploded. With his 24-inch pythons, signature bandana, iconic mustache, and unmistakable charisma, Hogan became the face of professional wrestling. He wasn't just a star, he was the sun around which the WWE Universe revolved. His energy, his promos, his theme music, it all felt like electricity. You didn't watch Hulk Hogan. You believed in him. It was 1984 when Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden to win the WWF Championship. That night, the crowd roared louder than ever before. That night, professional wrestling stopped being a niche attraction and became a cultural phenomenon. WrestleMania was built on Hulk Hogan's back. He headlined the first 8 WrestleManias. Every child wanted the action figure. Every commercial wanted his face. Every network wanted a piece of Hulkamania. From teaming with Mr. T, to body-slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, to battling Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior, Hogan transcended wrestling. He was on cereal boxes. He was in movies. He even had his own cartoon. He was the American hero of the 80s. A living, breathing superhero who told an entire generation to believe in themselves. But with every meteoric rise comes shadows. As the 90s dawned, Hogan's popularity began to fade in WWE. The fans were changing. The business was changing. And Hogan? He was about to change too. In 1994, he jumped ship to WCW. And in 1996, at the infamous Bash at the Beach, he did the unthinkable, he turned heel. The red and yellow were gone. In their place stood the villainous black and white of the New World Order. Hollywood Hogan was born. And somehow, the world loved him all over again. The NWO era redefined cool. WCW ratings skyrocketed. Hogan was once again the most talked about figure in wrestling. Whether you loved him or hated him, you couldn't ignore him. He was the axis of the Monday Night Wars, and he knew it. But time catches up with everyone. By the early 2000s, Hogan returned to WWE for one last wave of nostalgia. His WrestleMania X8 match against The Rock is still hailed as one of the most electric atmospheres in wrestling history. Old-school Hogan fans stood toe-to-toe with the new era, and for one magical night, the past and the future collided. Yet even as the cheers returned, so did the controversies. Hogan's personal life began to unravel. A messy divorce. A reality TV show. Lawsuits. And in 2015, leaked audio of racially charged remarks caused WWE to sever ties, removing him from the Hall of Fame website and leaving fans disillusioned. For a time, Hulk Hogan wasn't just a fallen hero, he was exiled. But redemption, like wrestling, is full of second chances. In 2018, WWE quietly reinstated Hogan into the Hall of Fame. Some fans welcomed him back. Others didn't. But for better or worse, his shadow loomed large once again over the world he helped build. And then came the decline. Behind the sunglasses, the tan, and the exaggerated charisma, Hogan's body was breaking down. Years of leg drops, back surgeries, and physical punishment had taken their toll. By his own admission, he'd had over a dozen back surgeries. He walked with a cane. Pain was constant. Still, he'd smile. Still, he'd show up at conventions, still flex those arms for fans who never stopped loving him, no matter the controversy. And that's what makes today so painful. This morning, paramedics responded to a 911 call from Hogan's Florida home. Reports confirm he suffered cardiac arrest. Despite immediate CPR and rapid emergency intervention, he was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. He was 71. TripleH, now head of creative and the face of WWE management, chose to break the news himself on Raw. His voice trembling, he looked directly into the camera and said what no fan ever wanted to hear. "Tonight, we lost a brother. A friend. A legend. Hulk Hogan is gone, but Hulkamania will never die." The audience, stunned. Tears. Gasps. Some in prayer. Others shouting, "Thank you, Hogan," over and over again until the sound filled the arena. Online, tributes poured in. John Cena posted a photo of their handshake, with one word, immortal. The Rock wrote, "The man who made wrestling a household name. My childhood hero. My peer. My brother. Rest easy, Hulkster. Love you forever." Even CM Punk, who famously clashed with Hogan ideologically, tweeted, "Without Hogan, none of us are here. That's the truth. Rest in power." And from the fans? Thousands of tribute signs appeared at house shows. Murals. Fan art. TikToks of fans crying, remembering the moments he made them believe they could be heroes. Some shared stories of meeting him at Comic-Cons. Others recalled when they first heard Real American blast through their TV screens. Some only knew the NWO version. Some were children. Some were grandparents. But they all said the same thing. Hulk Hogan meant something. he was more than a wrestler. He was a symbol. A larger-than-life figure who stood tall, ripped his shirt, and told you to never give up. In a world that often feels cynical, Hulk Hogan represented something pure: hope. Yes, he was flawed. Yes, he made mistakes. But he also made millions of people smile, scream, believe, and dream. And for that, we say thank you. Rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. You were the man who told us our heroes could wear boots, growl like lions, and shout, "Whatcha gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?" Even in death, those words echo. Forever immortal. As the days pass since Triple H's heartbreaking announcement, the world of professional wrestling remains frozen in a moment of collective grief. News outlets from ESPN to TMZ, from wrestling podcasts to primetime broadcasts, all echoed the same headline: Hulk Hogan dead at 71. But it wasn't just a headline. It was the end of an era. Outside WWE headquarters in Stamford, fans gathered. Some in silence. Some in tears. Some holding up homemade signs: R.I.P. Hulkster, Hulkamania forever, he made us believe. Others wore red and yellow bandanas, paying homage the only way they knew how. They stood together, not just to mourn a man, but to honor a force. A force that once lifted professional wrestling onto its shoulders and carried it into the mainstream. Inside WWE, the mood was somber. Behind the scenes, the locker room was quiet. Veterans, rookies, production crew, and staff, many of whom grew up watching Hogan, stood united in disbelief. And for a company that thrives on spectacle and noise, the silence said it all. A source from within revealed that Stephanie McMahon, who grew up calling Hogan Uncle Terry, held back tears as she consoled several backstage talent. Kevin Owens reportedly sat in the hallway, visibly shaken, his face buried in his hands. Rey Mysterio hugged Dominic, no storyline, no heat, just grief. Even Roman Reigns, stoic and proud, took a moment alone in the corner of the gorilla position, eyes closed, lips trembling. The announcement sent waves beyond WWE. AEW founder Tony Khan tweeted, "Our industry owes him everything. Our hearts go out to Hogan's family and fans worldwide." Impact Wrestling, NJPW, and even UFC paused their social media schedules to post tribute graphics and heartfelt messages. The entire sports entertainment world paused to salute its fallen giant. And as the mourning spread, so did the memories. Clips began flooding social media. Of Hogan slamming Andre at WrestleMania 3, of him pointing his finger in the face of Vince McMahon, of his dramatic heel turn with the NWO. Fans recreated his poses, stitched together highlight reels, and shared grainy VHS tapes passed down from their parents. In those reels, Hulk Hogan was immortal. In those memories, he still is. But beyond the performances, beyond the thunderous crowd pops and pyrotechnics, what mattered most to so many was the way Hogan made them feel. A fan named Michael Rodriguez posted on Reddit, "I was 5 when my dad left. I didn't know what strength looked like until I saw Hulk Hogan. He told me to never back down. He was my first hero. I never got to tell him that. But I hope he knew." Others echoed the sentiment. That Hogan was more than just a performer. He was hope, he was fire, he was larger-than-life confidence in a world that often tried to shrink people. And yet, behind the curtain, the man known as Terry Bollea carried weight too. Pain. Regret. Years of physical torment, legal battles, broken friendships, and public missteps. He wasn't perfect. And he never claimed to be. In interviews later in life, Hogan often spoke about redemption, faith, and starting over. "I've made mistakes. Big ones. But I believe in second chances. And I believe in being better today than I was yesterday," he once said on the Today Show. That vulnerability, layered beneath his iron physique and booming charisma, made him human. And it's that humanity that makes this loss hurt in ways many didn't expect. The final moments of Raw that night were unlike anything fans had seen in years. The lights dimmed again. On the Titantron, a tribute video played, slow, deliberate, drenched in emotion. It began with Hogan as a child, then clips from his debut, followed by his championship wins, his rivalries, his interviews, his entrances. Real American played softly in the background, not as a battle anthem, but as a hymn. It faded out with a simple shot. Hogan in the ring, standing on the turnbuckle, doing his signature ear cup gesture, as the crowd faded into the background and the screen slowly dissolved into black and gold letters. Thank you, Hulk. 1953 to 2024 inch. The crowd rose to its feet. A chant erupted, not from the soundboard, not from any script. Hogan! 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 It lasted minutes. Even after the camera stopped rolling, fans refused to leave. For them, this wasn't just a segment. It was a goodbye. And for Triple H, it wasn't just an announcement, it was personal. Backstage footage would later show him sitting in his office, still in his suit, hands clasped together. A staff member handed him Hogan's bandana, folded neatly, red and yellow, faded with age. Triple H looked at it for a long time. No words. Just reflection. That's the thing about legends. When they go, they don't just leave a void, they take a piece of history with them. In the days that followed, WWE announced a full week of tribute programming. Hulk Hogan. Forever Immortal aired on the WWE Network, featuring interviews from past and present superstars, previously unreleased footage, and a roundtable special hosted by John Cena. Fans were invited to write letters, share memories, and even contribute to the Hogan Family Foundation, which would now focus on supporting retired wrestlers with chronic injuries and healthcare needs, something Hogan had privately advocated for in his final years. His funeral, set to take place in Clearwater, Florida, was to be a private affair, attended by close family and a select few WWE representatives. But the city prepared for thousands more to gather outside in a public vigil. Candlelight ceremonies, parade floats adorned with his gear, murals being painted across buildings, the celebration of Hogan's life stretched far beyond the church walls. And it wasn't just fans and wrestlers paying tribute. The White House released a statement. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame called him a pop culture pioneer. Even Marvel Comics posted a panel tribute, honoring the man who once seemed more superhero than human. Because in the end, Hogan's power wasn't in his leg drop, his promos, or his championship belts. It was in his presence. It was in the way he made people feel like they could be strong, righteous, and fearless. So now, as we say goodbye, we remember him not just as a wrestling icon, but as a symbol of resilience, reinvention, and unapologetic passion. He was the real American. He was the immortal. He was the man who told us to believe in ourselves, no matter how hard life gets. And that belief? That's what lives on. So to the man who taught us to say our prayers and eat our vitamins. To the man who stood tall, whether cheered or booed. To the man who ran wild on all of us. Rest easy, brother. You may be gone. But Hulkamania? That'll never die. If this story touched you, if even for a second you found yourself remembering the larger-than-life entrances, the thunderous chants, or the way your childhood heart beat a little faster when Hulk Hogan walked down that ramp, then you already know. This wasn't just about wrestling. This was about a man who gave everything to make us believe in something bigger. A man who sacrificed his body, his peace, and at times, his reputation, to build a world where heroes still existed. Where might wasn't just about strength, but about heart. And now, as we close the final chapter on Hulk Hogan's legendary life, we leave you with this simple truth. We don't mourn because he's gone. We mourn because he meant something. He was something. And in the echo of every woo, in the hum of every entrance theme that follows, in every child who still rips their t-shirt in front of the mirror, Hulk Hogan lives on. So tonight, light a candle. Play Real American. Tell your kids, your friends, your fellow fans the story of a man who made red and yellow more than colors, he made them a cause. To the fans, the wrestlers, the dreamers, let's carry the legacy forward. Let's honor not just the wrestler Hulk Hogan, but the idea of Hulk Hogan, that with faith, fire, and a little flex, anything is possible. And if you felt this journey, if you felt that lump in your throat or that pull in your chest, consider doing 3 things. Like this video, to keep his story alive. Subscribe to this channel, because we will never stop honoring the giants whose shoulders this industry stands on. And comment below, share your Hulk Hogan memory. Your favorite match. Your first roar of Hulkamania. Your goodbye. Because this isn't just our story to tell, it's yours. From all of us here. Thank you, Hulk. Rest in peace. You were the man, and to be the man, they still have to beat the man. But no one ever really beat you. Not in that ring. Not in this life. And not in our hearts. Rest easy, brother. Hulkamania runs forever. But even as the curtain falls on Hulk Hogan's life, what remains is the fire he lit in millions. This wasn't just the passing of a wrestling legend. It was the loss of an era, an age of icons who were more than athletes. They were myth. They were magic. And Hogan? He was the blueprint. His catchphrases, simple, powerful, have outlived generations. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Whatcha gonna do, brother? He didn't just say them, he lived them. And whether you were a kid watching from the front row, or a teenager trying to find your way, Hogan made you believe that strength came from standing up for what's right. And now, as WWE executives huddle behind closed doors, a new question rises. How do you honor a man like Hulk Hogan, properly? Insiders report that WWE is already planning a Hulk Hogan Memorial Raw, an entire episode dedicated to his memory. Sources suggest it will feature tributes from every generation, from Randy Orton to Sami Zayn, from Cody Rhodes to Stone Cold Steve Austin, all united by the man who helped give them a stage in the first place. Wrestlers have volunteered to read letters, share stories, and even wear tribute armbands in Hogan's signature red and yellow. WWE's creative team is reportedly working on a final Hogan package to air at SummerSlam, one that will feature not just his biggest matches, but his realest moments. The tears. The setbacks. The recoveries. The regrets. Because to truly honor a man, you don't just show his triumphs. You show his truth. And beyond the ring, a wave is rising. High schools across Florida have begun holding moments of silence. A petition is circulating to rename Tampa's Bayshore Boulevard in his honor. Hogan Highway. Even non-wrestling podcasts, finance shows, lifestyle channels, news outlets, are dedicating time to the man who, for decades, made people feel something. And this is where Hogan's story becomes something bigger. Because this story isn't just about a wrestler who wore boas and dropped legs. It's about what happens when someone dares to live louder than the rest of us. Yes, Hogan had flaws. Yes, he made mistakes. But he also made people.